I'm ready to roll. You know, the millennials are always late. Because we worked it. Because we worked it. That's our problem. Be careful what you say. You don't talk to me, you know, we don't talk to you. You don't want to say my. Oh, no, you went first. You are first. Yes, you know. I'm lying. You don't know, I put you on here because you're going to be green. Green? Oh, yeah, you sitting next to Mike Nelson. Oh, yeah. Y'all got the point? Oh, yeah, we're going to check the mic. After my show. I can't do nothing till I finish the show. Because we're going to go on here like this. Gotcha. That's right. Good. There you go. That's testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Give me some more values. Testing 1, 2. Everybody, one more time. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A little more value. Just a little bit more.
One, two.
Here we go.
Check 1, 2, 1, 1. Check, check, check. 1, 2, check. 1, 2, check. 1, 2, check.
Okay. The thing is.
Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2.
Hey, Will.
Testing 1, 2. Microphone check. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. You know, I thought about that. I thought about that. You know what, Will? I'm gonna have you say a few words. I got you.
3 times.
I got you.
Okay.
I forgot. You know, I just thought when I said who's missing. Then I thought about it. I said, okay.
But where's my reaching in the box? That's what I'm asking. We don't do virtual.
So, Will, can you come here for a sec? Test.
I don't care. I'm at work. I'm at work. That's fine. And I'm about to get off. That's fine. That's fine. But so I need you to take care of it. Okay, no, I'm not going to pay attention. I'm not, but I'm saying we don't do virtual anything. So where's your person? What you guys do? Well, why is the
Nothing big.
I have no we can't win anything. All I'm saying is trust my God. But I'm asking you where's your house? You don't do anything. I'm asking you to show me your receipt. Here's your receipt. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, I'm good. You all right? Okay, good. I'm good. Good.
1 2, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So.
You know, back. And then, getting extensions, I want you to know, I just thought about it. First, I remember about 38, 35, 32. That's what it was. I left it out. Oh, that's my friend. 13-year-old doing that.
That's what I saw you.
Oh,
She's running.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you can get started. All right, y'all, we're about to get this party going. Hey, Billy, did you get the song? Okay. All right, let's get ready to get going. Go ahead.
ladies and gentlemen, here is Kenn Dowell.
Hey, what's up, everybody? We're about to get started with the program. Want everybody, if you had an opportunity before we get started, nice seeing Cordell made it in here tonight. All right, we're going to get started, but before we get started, I want to bring up the owner of this fine establishment that we're at today. If anybody don't know Mr. Keith Rogers, he is the owner of this establishment, and he allowed us to have this place today to shoot our very first live podcast. And he's going to just give a welcome to everybody who came here today. So, Mr. Keith Rogers.
Thank you, everybody, and welcome to Brother Can We Talk. Mr. Kenn Dowell,
Thank you.
and cast members up here, I don't know each of your names, but, you know, it's an honor for you guys to be here. When Kenn brought it up to my attention, it was kind of, you know, heart-wrenching that, you know, a brother can actually want to sit down and talk to another brother. I mean, you know, a lot of brothers don't talk, you know, including myself. So, you know, you guys ask the tough questions. This is a podcast. This is my first podcast that I've ever been a part of. I'm glad you guys came out and enjoy the show.
Right. Thank you. Well, everybody, we want to just a couple of quick things. We got a raffle that we're doing back there. We're auctioning off some gifts. So if you hadn't had an opportunity to make sure you got a ticket for the raffle, make sure you do that so that you will be a part of the gift exchange that we're going to be doing as a part of that raffle. Other than that, we're going to get ready to start on the podcast. Lateef, are you ready to get things going? We live? All right, so we're about to go live with our podcast. And we're about to get going. So Philly Mac, give us our theme song, and we're going to get started.
Ladies and gentlemen, you rockin' with a go. Kenn Dowell giving you motivation for growth. 2 toes down, he keep it realer than most. He do it for the culture, that's always the goal. This is Strategic Moves with Kenn Dowell. This is Strategic Moves with Kenn Dowell.
So welcome. You tuned in to another episode of Strategic Moves. I'm your host, Kenn Dowell, and today we're going to continue our conversation on Brother Can We Talk.
Brother Can We Talk was a conversation or a series that we put together because we felt that there was a need for African American brothers to get together and talk about issues that are affecting our community, but moreover, that's impacting the African American male. And in doing that, I put together a series and invited some brothers out that I knew who had impact in our community on various different topics. And so today I brought them all out for everybody, and we're going to have a cigar, smoke, food, drinks, and talk a little bit about some of the topics we had over in that discussion. So today, without further ado, we're going to get right to it. I want to introduce my wonderful panel of people I have here today. I have Reverend C.J. Matthews. He's with the Mount Sinai Missionary Baptist Church in Mount Sinai, and he is going to be talking about relationships with us today. He is our relationship guru. I have next to him, we have Mr. Bob Ivory. Bob Ivory's been doing mentoring in our school systems with students of promise for the last few years in the city of Cleveland and around Cuyahoga County. He's been a staunch person out there really pushing mentoring and trying to bring young African American men up, and not just with students of promise, but also with what he's doing there at 100 Black Men. Also, without everybody know Judge Mike Nelson. Judge Mike Nelson has been in our community fighting on behalf of us all his career. As president of the NAACP, as president of 100 Black Men, as working with students down at Central State University. Judge Nelson has always been the person out front, and he came in and talked social justice, and we're going to talk a little more social justice along with him. The next one we have here, let's give it up for Mike. Give it up for the judge. Give it to the judge. Thank you. Thank you. So the next person we have here on our panel is we have Richard Starr. Richard Starr is going to represent the millennials today. I thought that when we talked about getting together and talking about what it would take in order to bridge this gap between African American males and what we need to do, it's a big generational gap that we have as well. I have teenagers as well as I'm raising a millennial in my household as well, so I understand the troubles and the struggles of trying to communicate and get on the same page. And Richard Starr is going to help us today with some of those ideas and tell us what's really on the minds of the young youth today. So I want everybody to give a warm welcome to our whole panel that's here today. Thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank everybody who came out today to witness and be a part of our live podcast discussion, as well as I want to thank everybody that's watching us on YouTube as well as Facebook. If you have any questions that you would like to leave for any of the panelists, please leave it in the comments section. Lateef is manning our social media and the cameras today, and he will make sure we get those questions there. Part of our discussions that we put together, we had a gentleman on our panel. His name was Fred Ward. Fred Ward was going to do the panel discussion on rehabilitation. He did it on our show, but he had a scheduling conflict and he couldn't make it out today. But he has a person who is taking his place who's going to come up and say a few words about rehabilitation and collateral sanctions. His name is Will. So Will, if you don't mind, we're going to open up, but everybody's going to have an opening statement. So we're going to let Will start off this thing, talk a little bit about collateral sanctions. He got his story. So Will, we're tight on time, brother, so let's do it in 2 minutes. Hey, you got the flow, Will.
I can do it in 90 seconds.
Oh, no. You got time, brother. We with you.
How everybody doing? So, like the brother said, I'm an impromptu for Mr. Ward. It's my honor to be here.
Billy.
You can't hear me? Okay. Can y'all hear me? All right. Can I just take this off?
Yeah, you can take it off.
There we go.
There you go.
So, I'm a member and organizer for Building Freedom Ohio. I'm an organizer that Mr. Ward is the head. I'm strategic director for the state of Ohio. And one of the main things that we do is attack collateral sanctions. And you have a judge up here. I'm sure the judge knows what collateral sanctions are. But for people who don't know what a collateral sanction is by name, I know you might know about feeling if you've ever been a victim of the criminal justice system, right? If you ever had a felony, whether you went to prison or not, you can't get a job, you can't get housing. I couldn't get insurance when I came home. I did 26 years. I've been home 3 years. I couldn't get life insurance, right? That's a collateral sanction. It's an extension of the punishment that you were supposed to serve when you went to do your time or your probation or whatever. And it's not right, and it makes it hard for us when we come home to try to live a productive life. It took me a year and several letters from mayors and councilmen and all this just to get a place to live. So one of the main things that we do in Build a Freedom Ohio is address those policies, because every day they're making policies to try to keep us under their foot. The criminal justice system is a money maker, and every day they're looking for a way to make money off our backs, the backs of black men specifically, but brown and black people in general. So one of the main things that we're doing is trying to attack those collateral sanctions. We do that through voting. In Ohio, one of the few states that you still allowed to vote, in case y'all don't know that, and make sure y'all register as a felon. So they did a good job of putting that F on our back. Now we about to do a good job of making them pay for putting that F on our back by coming together as a unit and using our voting leverage to start getting policies and stuff changed.
That's good enough for us. Let's get started. We're going to start the conversation off. Will's going to be chiming in as we go, and everyone else, this microphone we have in the front is open the mic for anyone that has questions for any other panelists. Once we get going, feel free to come up and we'll ask those questions. All right, so we're going to get started with our show today, and we're going to start off with giving the panelists. I asked everybody to just have a little opening statement to kind of talk a little bit about what they're here for, and I got my good friend Reverend Matthews right next to me. We're going to start with Reverend Matthews. He is our guru as it relates to relationships. So, Pastor, we want you to start us off by, give us a little background on relationships, and what do you think based off of the show and where we are as it relates to African-American male and trying to get these relationships and building better relationships, not with just each other, but with faith, with our families, and with each other, man, trying to really get out here and make a relationship, having brothers come out and sisters, I will give it up to the sisters. I had more phone calls from the sisters saying, can they come to this event, than I had brothers who said they were coming. So we're going to keep this thing going because we're going to get through. So, Pastor, please help us out.
Thanks, Ken, and thanks, Brother Rogers, for hosting us, and to Ken's team who worked so hard to make the podcast as well as this event. And I kind of shared with Ken on the podcast, and you can check it out if you like, that somehow I got to be the relationship guru simply because my wife stayed with me 49 years. So I really think she's the one that should do this podcast, because I ain't been no perfect dude, okay?
All right. None of us perfect.
But and it's simple, it's not hard, all right? But it's become complex over the years because of some of the things that Brother Will talked about, some of the things that we know exist in our community, and it's so easy to throw a brother under the bus. I mean, it just happened daily, all day for 400 years in this country. And so relationships are the primary asset in a family, in a community, in a nation, in a world. And so if we can destroy the primary asset, then we can get at everything else. And so when your relationship is tight and intact, and it fulfills those things within you and your partner, then it allows you to go out and be a champion in the world. And so if we get the fundamental thing right, is that's ourself and how much we love ourself, because we can't love God and then not love ourselves. And we can't love God and then not love our partner. So if we get the fundamentals right, then we can build something strong.
Thanks, Reverend Matthews. Bob, let's talk about mentorship. Bob Ivory was on the show. He talked mentoring and the importance of that. Where you at with this thing?
Well, first, Ken, thanks for the opportunity, and to the panelists, it's an honor to be in the midst of this greatness up here. When it comes to mentoring, really, it's kind of simple for me. I'm just looking back to give back what was given to me. I'm that kid off of 105, that kid from the Glenville area, that kid coming through an area that was surrounded by a lot of, strong men and family and some of those values that I think some of them have, kind of lost their way. So in developing programs and mentoring and closing the achievement gap and working in schools, I'm really just trying to replicate what was poured into me or poured into us through our era. And I think it can be done. I'm just thinking about what happened with me at Dowell and going through Harry Davis and just matriculating. And I had a lot of help, and I had a lot of resource. I had a lot of support. And I'm trying to create avenues and create opportunities and use influences and and a lot of different relationships to create those for our young people today. So that's what I've attempted to do over the years in Cleveland and Cuyahoga County and San Francisco and back. Just try to create that village, that healthy village. But it has to have resources. It has to have strong individuals like we have on the stage, reach out to other relationships in the community, but then just give to those young people what was given to us, because there's greatness in them. We just have to find it and pull it out of them.
Thanks, Bob. Judge, let's talk of social justice. You know, it's funny because you are coming from a position of where you were fighting on behalf of a lot of African American males and females on behalf of just what's right, from the NAACP perspective, from 100 Black Men's perspective. How you do all of that and become judge?
You know, it's strange because not many people can follow the path I followed to become a judge. Mm-hmm. Usually you burn out. If you look back historically over people that were activists, mm-hmm. I mean hardcore activists, mm-hmm. they don't live long. Mm-hmm. And if they live long, they usually don't enjoy the fruits of all their labor. Now, mm-hmm. other people will enjoy the fruits of their labor, but seldom will the activists enjoy the fruits of their labor.
They're never around.
They're never around. And or you see them and they're burned out.
Right.
As we talk about social justice, I was reading a story today about a young man, two young men who were accused of a murder, been incarcerated, and they're having a retrial today. Mm-hmm. And it reminded me of the fact that justice, and I'm not going to say delayed, justice denied for anybody is justice denied for everybody. There's another gentleman who was exonerated after years of incarceration for a crime that he did not do. And we have got to, as citizens, become very, very vigilant about how our courts are operating, because we have so many innocent people behind bars. And speaking to the brother that talked about collateral sanctions, we were on a committee years ago in the State House where some of these collateral sanctions were rolled back, and I'm going to shock you with what I'm going to say next. Black men are the most endangered species. That's not what's going to shock you. They're the most endangered species, most endangered ethnic group on the face in the United States. Okay? We have more men who cannot defend themselves because of collateral sanctions don't allow them to own weapons. My belief is that if you were convicted of a non-violent offense, first of all, this is the simple part. If you're convicted of a non-violent offense, you should not be denied your right to own a weapon. I'm just waiting for somebody to come up with a court case. You can file that appeal and see. You should not be denied owning a weapon. And with the number of us being incarcerated for the thing, and convicted rather, of some of the low-level crimes, low-level felonies, they cannot own weapons, which makes our community vulnerable to a lot of outside issues. I'm reminded of Tulsa. I'm reminded of a number of communities where the community was not capable of defending itself because they were denied access to weapons. Now, that's going to shock some people. We can talk about that later on. But those are issues that I think directly impact our community. And finally, in terms of a statement, bail bond reform has got to take place in this state. People are being locked up and held without being convicted, and in some cases they're held longer waiting for their trial than the punishment they get for the crime they committed. Wow. Because they could not post a bond. And we've got to get rid of, not in all cases, because there's some people that deserve to be in jail while their cases are being tried, but we cannot keep locking up people and holding them in jail for bonds that are $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. And I want you to be mindful of that when you talk to candidates running for judge. When you talk to candidates running for judge, you need to be mindful of that.
Legislatures also.
Yeah, and legislators, and legislators as well. Legislators as well.
So then we turn it over to this millennial. And I keep saying that because I got a son at home that reminds me of this guy here. But he's a really good guy. This is Richard Starr. I got an opportunity to get a chance to sit down with Richard, the councilman, and get an opportunity to understand him and learn him a little better. He taught me some stuff on that show, and I'm hoping that he shares some of that information with you. For those who don't know, Richard Starr is the councilman in Cleveland, Ward 5, which is that central area downtown, most of the project area down there.
That's my
Richard
ward.
is the ward guy there. Richard was raised in those projects, King Kennedy, and he is representing the poorest area in Cleveland and the area with the highest amount of homicides also. So we're going to talk a little bit about this millennial generation and the difference in the gap and how we can kind of work together a little bit. So again, Richard, I'm glad you made it on the show, brother, and I'm glad you made it, so welcome.
Thank you. Oh, man. Ken always trying to get me started. Like I won't be arguing all day at work. First, I would like to say thank you all for having me come out here and be a part of this panel discussion. Today, I feel honored to be here because we're going to have that real conversation, that real dialogue about issues that African-American males go through in our African-American community. Something that's been dear in my heart is just the healthcare system. I'm fighting the fight regarding St. Vincent's and Charity closing down their EMS coming in November. So that's something on my heart, but my background stems from youth development professional, working 14 and a half years with Boys and Girls Club. I've been able to work with a lot of millennials, a lot of young folks to be able to help them see that there is opportunities to do something much greater than what is confined in the walls that you are surrounded in. So one of the things is I'm just honored to be here. I am newly elected council member 9 months. I counted for this now.
And the youngest. He's actually the youngest one down there also.
Yeah, so they say young, but I got a little experience. I put my 14 and a half years on working in the community against anybody record. I put in work. But today I just wanted to be able to say thank you for having me here, but let's get to talking.
All right, we're going to get started because I was praying all day that it didn't rain. So it stopped it for me to get this in. So I'm going to get going because I'm on a time schedule. All right, so we're going to get going right away. Reverend Matthews, we're going to start with you. Family is important. And you say, you say family is important. I know family is important to you. But I want you to answer the question on how important is the black family to the city of Cleveland and its region, as well as to society. And Richard, I want you to follow up, and any of you guys can chime in after that.
Right. The black family itself is a unique entity in the earth, in America, in this country, and especially in this community, given the poverty. And so, therefore, it has been the most enduring family unit on earth. It has created some of the more powerful people, but yet it's always vulnerable and at risk. It's vulnerable and at risk because of the larger macro things such as poverty, racism, lack of resources, but it's also vulnerable and at risk simply because of mentorship, the kind of work that Councilman Starr did over Boys and Girls Club, because people, unfortunately, over the last 4 decades, who have been born into families that didn't have the nuclear entity and or models have been challenged even more so by those macro things. So as a culture, we develop behaviors. As a result of the affect of racism in our community, we've developed behaviors. There's some stuff we just developed on our own. Didn't have nothing to do with nobody, just us. But because of all those various dynamics, there is no one silver bullet that can create the new nucleus that we need. So we have to take this diverse, powerful entity, the black family, which if family is relationships are the biggest asset, it's our biggest asset. A lot of times people say the black church is the biggest asset, and I'm a pastor, but the black family is the biggest asset. And that family has to be recognized in all of its diverse forms. We can no longer put it in a small box and say this is the family. The family has to be ministered to, serve whoever lives in that house, whether it's a mom and dad, a mom with children, a dad with children, whatever the description is of that household, that's who needs the services. Is there potential? More potential than we'd ever realize. And right now, we're at the greatest moment in the history of being in this country to realize our potential and do some things different going forward, given the world shut down the last few years. We don't have to go back to anything. We can go forward and literally begin to write some new history, some new destinies, And the black family can become the center of voting, the center of determining our children are not going to be caught up in this unjust racial justice system. We can determine that our own selves by simply working together with the family that exists in that house without being judgmental.
Councilman Starr?
You know, Reverend, I always go there. He brings it every time. But when I think of family, I think of the system that has been in place to destroy the black family. You know, when you start thinking about a neighborhood, or when I think about my upbringing, vast majority of those who was the head of the household was single African-American females, which is great at times, but you keep forgetting you need a male in the house. You need men to be able to raise these young boys. So when you start talking about this system and you talk about how people are being locked up, Judge just mentioned earlier, you start thinking about the real issues when someone go to jail for time, but they're never rehabilitated. But when they come back home, there's no resources for them because they got a felony. That is just like highway robbery if you look at it. For me, like, you're going to continue to penalize me. But then also you look at it from a standpoint that the minute you take that man out the household in the earlier 1900s, in the 60s and 70s and the 80s, and the crack epidemic started to go on, you start to looking at how our neighborhoods start to destroy. So as a millennial who's involved in politics, it is a right and my duty to get involved to figure out how we can right these wrongs while we have the chance now to do it. But when you think about a family, we got to take the family word and turn it into our word, our own vocabulary on what we want to see our generation happen. Throughout my time and experience working in Boys and Girls Club, I've mentored hundreds of kids from down the way, east side, west side. I've been all over the city working with youth. But one thing that hurts me is sometimes we just don't know. You know, you could be raising and mentoring a young person, and then sometimes the biggest hurdle you got to deal with is that parent who just don't understand how you loving on their child stronger than any other male can do it. So what happens is sometimes they push you away because you brought structure and discipline to the situation that they did not know about. So sometimes you got to work with that individual. Do not push that one away because you just don't know. Allow that person to love on your child. Let that mentor be there for your child, sometimes longer than some parents have. I have kids that I've raised and helped, school supplies, school tuition, all type of different things, making sure they are taken care of. But next thing you know, I haven't met the mom and had a full conversation, but they go against the grain at any given time. And I'm like, why? Why do I have to bear the burden of what you dealt with when I'm just trying to be there to help your child? No, I'm not asking you for nothing. No, I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just trying to help break the cycle. And if I got the knowledge and went to go get these degrees from Baldwin Wallace, it's only right that I bring it back to my community and be the change that we wish to see. And that's what you call family.
All right, Richard Starr, okay, millennial. All right, he got it settled up.
Baldwin Wallace, two degrees.
Two degrees, okay. So let's go over to Bob. Bob, let me ask you, we was on this mentoring thing. What's your definition of a mentor or a hero in our community? What is that definition? What makes that?
I would say mentoring is really about meeting that young person where they are, meeting them where they are, and then giving them the tools, the resources, the confidence, the affirmation. There's that significant person in their life that they see, and when they see that person, they believe that they can do anything, they can be anything. If anybody's out here, you were an athlete or you played sports or whatever, your coach pretty much made you believe that you had more abilities than you maybe actually had. But you really wanted to be successful because you wanted to please that coach. You wanted to please that person, that mentor. So I think what we have to do is bring a lot of that back, because I think once they see us and they believe in us, and what I think is we have to instill in them that how much we believe in them. So what I try to do on a daily basis and over the years is instill into young people, you know, the greatness that they have inside of them, the genius they have. You have kids raise their hand and say, how many of you are smart? You might have 30 kids in the class, or 25 kids, and maybe 4 or 5 or 6 kids or teenagers, they raise their hand. And no, everybody's hand should raise, because there is a smartness, there's a gift, there's a genius, there is something inside of each one of them that they don't even realize they have themselves. I think in our generation, They made sure we knew what our gifts were. And then they made sure there were others around us that brought those gifts out of us, be it the council person, be it the pastor, be it the community center, be it at the school. There were a lot of people around us that we could point to and look to and see that, oh yeah, that's the person that I can either strive to be, or that's the person that's significant in my life that I can look to. I just think that we have to go back to some basics. And the other thing is we have to share and share the history with our young people, because if they knew what those before them went through, when they see what other teens went through, when they realized that the civil rights movement was led and driven by a lot of 16, 17, and 18 and 14-year-olds, and you get them to see that, wait a minute, that same DNA is in you. You can be that young person today, but we have to bring that out of them and give them the resources, the tools, and the opportunity, and for them to be successful.
Well, you keep saying we got to do it and bring it back. Like, what happened to it?
I think the councilman spoke to some things that have gone to break down a lot of those barriers, or break down the family, break down systems, make things more complicated. Because if you really want to be, if we're going to go there today, there's a reason why there's a movement to remove history from school. Why is that? There's a reason why the critical race theory is such a on the forefront, that we don't want to teach certain things. Why is that? Because if you don't know, that means you can replace it with something else. And if you don't show and teach how strong you are and how strong you are as a people, how resourceful you are, what's in your DNA, what literally built this country, and if that's in you, whether you go to Kennedy, East Tech, Warrensville, Glenville, that same mechanism is inside of you. If somehow that is watered down when you don't realize that, then you can pretty much kind of fall for anything and not reach your full potential. So there's a reason why history is such a fight not to teach it and not to share it, because if you don't share it, don't teach it, it's easy to replace it.
So, Judge, when did we stop?
You know, I'm privileged to have been a tweener. That means I was too young for Cordell's dad and too old for you guys. But the benefit I had was I got to eat lunch with Cordell's dad. Y'all don't know who Cordell's dad was, and Mayor Carl Stokes. I got to eat lunch with Ben Goldston, Reverend Goldston. I got to eat lunch with all of my heroes. All of them. Every one of them. Every day I could go to the Carnegie Hotel to meet with the Carnegie Round Table and eat lunch with them. So I got to sit down and argue with the Lou Stokes. When I say argue, I mean debate and learn from the Lou Stokes.
We know.
I got to learn from the Stanley Tollivers and the Harrison Dillard. I got to see Harrison Dillard eat ribs and not get sauce on his fingers. Wow. I got to hang out with Rick Perez, my good friend. His brother was Frank Perez. I got to talk to these guys, who was a legendary coach at Glenville, track coach. And these are people that my brothers ran with good Reverend Matthews. So I got to sort of visit with old heads and young cats. Reverend Crockett, who was part of the Mike Tyson entourage and the Don King crew. And you know, when we were young, I went to Alveway. Actually, let's go back. I grew up on 37th and Scoville, where the houses were made out of clapboard.
Short scope.
Short scope. And then on 79th and Platt Court, where we upgraded to one that had 2 bedrooms. It was still clapboard. And then went to and lived at Alveway, where I could look out my window. And every day, this is where the family came in. Every day at 3 o'clock, I had to be in my window so my cousin could see me from the 3rd floor of East Tech to make sure I was at the house. That's how it worked. And then as we moved out into see, everybody, well, let me say it like this. 90% of the people that are 78 years and older in Cleveland grew up in the projects. That's where they got their start. If they didn't grow in them, they were right around them. And that sense of community was so strong, and until about the early 60s, and this is why we got to be in the room when decisions are made. See, families lived in the projects, mama, daddy, and we may have had some other extended family member in the projects. But then the social engineers decided that you couldn't have families living in the projects. All right? That happened in the mid-60s. And so now you don't have, and then the people say, and Ken, you and I talked about this on the podcast. Moms, if they weren't married, that wasn't a new phenomenon, but all of a sudden, they had to hide the men when the welfare folks came by to check, which started breaking down that whole family structure. See, all families are not married families. Some families, mom and dad, just don't get married, but they're in love and they provide a nurturing environment. So the question I have is, how are we gonna get back in the room so that when decisions are made, they're not made by people who have good intentions, but also have some practical reality about how families should be structured. How are we gonna get back in that room?
Richard, I think the millennials have a different perspective.
It's your fault.
Uh-oh. I told you.
All right, go ahead.
It's your generation fault. And what I mean by that in a positive way, but also coming direct, is the fact that you were in the rooms making those conversations, tea parties, conversation. I look up at the ward that I serve, which is Ward 5, and it's almost saddening that it shows that if you're not poor, you can't live in my ward. When 72% of the zoning that has been done in my ward, in Ward 5, is for semi-industry or multifamily industry. So that means put everybody that's poor in one area and let them just destroy each other without having hope. Where was the resources? Where was the fight for ending the redlining that took place? Where about the government and those who had the power back then to make sure that we don't have to hide the father that's in the household, to make sure we won't have this trend that we see in today, in which you have people in relationships in a family or guy and a female are dealing with each other for 10, 12 years, and this kid and this guy don't even have a relationship with the son that's in the house, but he still come on every night. So what I mean by that is, when a generation that came before us sometimes make mistakes, they probably didn't have everything right, but it's up to us now, since we got the knowledge, to correct those things, because we shouldn't be in the neighborhood of Ward 5 where everybody in the projects is just surrounded by each other, doing whatever they want. We lack the resources. We lack the neighborhood access to good paying jobs. But then you also think about the fact that they don't even want to bring mortgages or give you loans to be able to buy a house just because of the area code that you live in. So what I mean by that, not particular you judge, but overall, the culture back then was like, hey, we're going to allow this to pass over. One interesting story that I could talk about that happened to me this day, when I first got in office earlier this year, it was a bond sale transfer going over for Garden Valley, Rainbow Terrace. And what happened was, back in '99, when the guy, Arthur, bought the property, he did a good just service by bringing social services needs to the community. When he decided to do that, he had nothing in writing. He said, you know what, I'm going to just fund $400,000 to social services needs in this neighborhood. Now, 20-something years later, when he's trying to sell, I'm like, no, you can't just sell to anybody. I need to know if they're going to keep these resident services. There's nothing in writing for me to bark, so I'm barking and barking and barking and fighting them. And I'm like, well, what about the leadership before me? They never understood the need to have these services. So when we keep being asleep, or we just don't turn the blind eye, or if we're not going to put in the work, we shouldn't be in politics, because things like that shouldn't happen, in which I had to fight back and forth, down to the last day before the contract expired, before we came up with a solution to pass a piece of legislation for the bond sale, or the city would have lost some money. But it's those things that happened long before, I was born in '88. I'm proud of my millennialness, and born and raised and graduated from King Kennedy. I grew up in the LAJ era. I grew up in the blues, Delaney. I've been all through down the way doing anything, Lord knows what. I wasn't one of the kids that was sheltered. I'm the second oldest of 6 children, 4 boys and 2 girls, 4 baby fathers my mom had. So I am a product of my environment, but I got educated to now help my neighborhood. I can't be on the sideline if I'm not going to help myself while I can help the neighborhood.
That's why I like this brother here, man. I'm telling y'all, he's going to be all right. Reverend Matthew.
It's invaluable to have these conversations, because as the judge stated, some of us had access to great minds, and we did, and we gleaned and we learned. Brother Starr, because we gleaned and we learned, we can go forward and do some things today. We have to be careful if we spend too much time in the past. because we cannot go back and change anything. Now we got some folk trying to rewrite it, so that means we got to write it. That means we got to teach it. That means we got to produce it. That's why these shows are so important. That's why every blog and every podcast, there's a educational and informational is important, because we have to do it ourselves. Think about this, and I say it passed for a purpose. One generation post-slavery, the black family was back intact.
That's right.
One generation with less resources, less education, less access, Jim Crow and you name it, but the black family was back intact in one generation post-slavery. What brought it? Because all of a sudden, men who were not allowed to take care of their families, who abandoned their families, could become sharecroppers. So a job became important. And once he economically was empowered, then his character could fulfill those fatherly responsibilities. So the intentionality of this system to destroy the black man, criminalize him, take him away from productive resources, introduce him to an economy that can perpetuate the cycle, drugs, all right? And so now, if we offer him this quick money, easy money, death money, he'll spread it throughout his own community. And the thing that we know is the most powerful, black family, will continue to represent destruction for itself unless the one being destroyed fights back. We can empower all of the people we want to, but until you do what you did, it won't happen for you.
And I think that's critical, what you just said, Pastor, because, and what I was alluding to is, if you do not understand, you don't have to go back and live the history, but you got to understand, you got to know what it was. You got to know what it is. Because there is a movement, it is a movement in real time to replicate what destroyed that Renaissance, the first generation. There's a movement right now that's doing, it's a playbook. It's happening every single day. If you look at what's going on with the, I'm just going to, go off script a little bit and talk about the migration. That what they're doing in Florida and busing and migrating migrants into the north, they did that already. They did that back in the 30s. They did that back in the 20s. They did that to show Northerners, okay, we about to send these folks that don't have a lot of education, we're going to send them, that were right out of slavery, we're going to send them up north as if it was going to backfire, but it didn't. So you got to understand the history, because it is being attempted to be recreated for the same purposes. That's why education is so critical. You have to be educated as how to, that's your defense against that. And education also means, we're talking about the lines, you're talking about what's being drawn, you're talking about what happened in another generation. Well, it's going to happen again if people don't vote. If you got a 14, 17% turnout, well, what do you think? How do you think the laws are going to get drawn? Who's going to have access to information? You know what I'm saying? And if you're not, if we don't figure out how to bring more of what I was referring to as far as what we were educated by back in the classroom, I could name, I'm not going to name them here because we ain't too far from them, where you got districts where there's not a black male in the whole school teaching anything. How is that? When you got Morehouse, Spelman, Morehouse, Tuskegee, Alabama State, they're churning out bright black men every single day. But why are they not educating in our urban centers as teachers and professors and so forth? There is a reason why that is difficult.
So Judge, let's go into this, because I want to go into that, because we'll talk a little bit about education. And on the education front, Judge, I want you to tell us how you believe, and Richard, I want you to follow up on this, how our educational system here in Cleveland has let down not just the African-American male, but the African-American student, period. And Richard, on our program, we talked about that, and I really would like you to really go back into that, rant a little bit, and explain to us, why is it so hard for us to get it? One of the things that I've really been working with myself and learned a lot from working with Fred Ward's organization, trying to understand incarcerated people a little bit better than what I think I may know. Also working with Richard Starr and talking with him on the millennial front, and he really don't understand how much he's helping me even understand my kids a little bit better, because it is this thing that some people, and we have a generation of young people who just don't know. A lot of stuff we take for granted, and we say, well, why are they doing that? Why is that person acting like that? Or why did they do that? They just don't know. They have nobody that's leading them down that road to teach them. And so I'm really being open-minded to that. I'm really taking myself back a little bit to take my time and look at things in a different format versus just jumping out there, accusing people or making accusations. So I know this is a really good one for you, Judge. Tell us about this justice system and the school system, and then you, Richard.
You know, I am not a fan of the current school CEO.
All right.
Everybody knows that. And I'm not ashamed to say, let me say it again. I am not a fan of Eric Gordon. I'm not a fan. Now, let me say this. In Reverend Matthews, I got to go back. In 1979, we got pissed off about the school system. You know what we did? Started our own school on 80 Road in St. Clair with a $500,000 grant that we hijacked from the Department of Labor. And the reason we were able to get that is because Ernie Green, history, of the Little Rock Nine, was undersecretary to the Department of Labor under Jimmy Carter. And we had people in this town who had relationships with President Carter. And we were able to get that grant. And we actually took kids out of the school system and 15 teachers and started our own school. Now they call them a charter today, but ours is a proprietary school. And those kids did quite well. I got sick and tired of it because I had to go down to the city council and convince them why I need the money. And one day I said, if I got to convince y'all, I'm out of here. Now I shouldn't have done that because I was young and intemperate. If I had more maturity, I'd have sat there and went through that and said, look, and kept that school open. But we also got pissed off and had a school strike, a school sit-in, where on December the 6th, because we got tired of the school system screwing over black kids, we went and sat in, broke in. Now the statute of limitations gone and the person that broke the window is not dead, so we can talk about that. Dr. Jordan broke the window and we went to school and sat in for 30 days. What we have to do, and I understand, you're right, our generation we didn't bring other people along so they could learn the tactics we knew. But as I said earlier, most activists never get to live to see or benefit from the fruits of their labor. That seldom happens. But this conversation between us, me and you, we got to reestablish and regenerate that sense of I ain't gonna take it no more, and go downtown or wherever you got to go, organize, not as a mob, but organize with goals and strategy. So we went to the school board. The mayor said, I want them arrested. George Forbes said, oh no, you ain't arresting them. Okay? And we were able to stay in that building, de-sanctify the school board. Because before we went in, it was like this holy place. You went in, you were all quiet, and, didn't say a word. But it changed things around. We didn't keep that momentum. And there's a reason for that. And I'll tell you why. And this is gonna hurt some people, stepping on some toes. If you go down Chester, on the north side, used to be tens of thousands of people living in apartment buildings. If you go on Chester now, you may have 70, 80 families living on plots that are now 6 and 7 lots. In 1998, there were 72,000 kids in the Cleveland public school system. There are now 34,000. Where did they go? What do we do to run the families out of Cleveland, to lose our political power so that our school board would not be appointed but would be elected? We lost that power because we wanted new houses or because we didn't help keep the people in the community and ran them out of town. And that's going on right now. So it ain't just redlining, which is a sin, and we need to deal with these banks. Richard, the council got the power to stop redlining tomorrow. But they got to exercise that power.
And they got to stop playing in the broken models.
That's right.
Affordable housing is a broken model.
That's right.
What's the difference in dirt on Woodland and dirt in Solon and Aurora? There's no difference. Development is development. It's about a building and financing. And that's all it is. And that's how simple it is. But the moment we come in certain neighborhoods, we build affordable housing that has less standard and only a short shelf life. And then the mortgages, because we give people Section 8, not hating on that, because we give people Section 8, they pay $200 to $300 a month, but the same land baron, robber baron, gets $1,200 to $1,400 a month because that's what the government is paying. $1,400 to $1,600 a month in those places where your ward lives, and that money is going to a robber baron in the name of affordable housing. And if they could take that same $1,400 to $1,500, they can move anywhere in this region. But we buy into broken models, we support broken models, and we perpetuate them. We don't need anyone to give us a mortgage.
That's a fact. That's right.
We have to write our own mortgage criterion, and the same people paying rent, not rent to own, are paying a mortgage. All right? And so if our communities are going to be rebuilt and we waiting on somebody to rebuild them, you'll be sitting in this chair, my age, I'll be gone on to glory maybe, and some young guy will be sitting over there where you sitting, and it's going to be the same OBS.
Councilman?
That's right.
You
We here to encourage you. We not here. We ain't on you. We ain't.
Look. I've been in tough rooms. I fight.
Yeah. We here to encourage.
I fight. And what I mean by that is education. So we're talking about education. So that's why I went back and got educated and continue to educate those. Next week I got a student shadow day. I have all of the schools in my ward coming out of City Hall to learn about what the work we do in City Hall, how we work with administration and different departments. But that's a long story. We'll talk more on social media about that. But when it comes to the educational system, today I had the honor of going to the State of the School address. Oh, it's cameras. Okay. I've gone to those the last 7 years, at least about 6 or 7 times. And I often get frustrated when I hear the State of the School address, but when I read the paper and I read the news, we are F school district. We can't talk about the progress we're making because we always say, oh, we gave a little progress, which is progress, but we need a whole new revamped school system. One thing that I argue and fight about is the fact that all of our kids, vast majority of the kids that go to CMSD school, and I'm a graduate of East Tech 2007, those kids in them primary grades, once they take that 3rd and 4th grade early literacy test or Ohio State test, only 72% of our kids are moving on to the 4th grade, and they're not at the grading level there. So the literacy rate that your kids are graduating at, you say 27% of them can do reading, writing, and math, basic core literacy. The other 73% are not. It's a record. You can pull it up. You can look at the numbers. So what happens? The 4th grade, are they getting that education? Is they getting it in 5th grade? Is they getting it in 6th? No, now we're in the 9th grade and you're asking this high school educator to get them prepared for life. How can I get them prepared for the working field when they can't even do the reading, writing, or basic math? So now you look up, that kid graduate, and now you get a district screaming 80% graduation, but we forgot that we just classified 50% of them with an IEP. So now we graduating so they can get passed along because they ain't got to take the test to graduate. Now we just throwing them out. Now you look up, the young man is 20 years old, still stay with mom, and mom is asking for $150 every month no matter what. And you never know, he may father a child. Now he got a mouth to feed. Now you're looking at him coming to Mr. Rich or Councilman Starr, and he wants me to get him a job. But I get him in that factory, he can't do the core skills because he got a high school diploma, qualified for the job, but he don't have the skills to do the job because he can't do the basic math, reading, and writing. So when we talk about the school district, there's no reason our kids should be graduating and not have trade. There's no reason why all the trades should be on the west side. There's a reason why we have this K through 8 model I am not a fan of. I grew up with the K through 5 and I had a middle school. The way you educate and love on a middle school student is completely different than when I'm in the 5th grade, when I'm in 9th grade. When I'm in that early teen stage, I needed more. And that's when the mentorship, my football coaches, my leaders in my community loved on me a little bit longer and more than ever so I can be able to become successful. But at the end of the day, if we don't change the thing, in which I spoke to Mayor Bibb about, the school system, and I spoke openly to Eric Gordon. I used to tag him on Facebook, but now I got a little more mature. I don't write those type of posts no more. But what I fought for is the fact that I was going to schools and I'm witnessing what is going on. Kids are just getting passed along and they're being babysitted, and it's not just the teacher's fault, it's the curriculum. So when you look at the fact that we have an F school district 11 years, 12 years, 13 years consecutive, and our CEO saying we're making progress, that's blasphemy. Because it's like we're not making strides if our kids are not prepared for real life. So we as educators need to hold our city and elected officials to the standards, because our mayor is the supervisor for the CEO. And if we need to go down to Columbus to do some lobbying and get some laws changed, that ain't nothing but just work and a 2-hour ride that we can take. But we gotta have it.
If we look at it, 34,000 children. The population has shrunk every 3 to 5 years. The budget has increased every 3 to 5 years. We're over $1 billion to educate 34,000 children. Something is wrong with that formula. I raised a question before they hired Eric Gordon to Paul Clark, who was the interim superintendent. Back then we had 43,000 children. I said, if we looked at a model, can we educate 43,000 children for them was a little less than $1 billion? He said, yes, but politically we won't make the changes. We had an opportunity to close a school last year. Politics kept it open. So now you have 2 schools with a few hundred children where one school could serve them much better, and we're spending money. It's a tough business decision, but all the schools I went to have been torn down.
If I could jump in real quick, because I still want to go back to your initial statement. When you made the statement, Pastor Matthews, about being one, and this is profound, one generation past slavery. And where were we as a community? Where were we as people? Where were we how were we being educated? And you got to understand what that means. Slavery, 200-300 years. One generation past it. Look at the HBCUs that were started. Look how successful those people were, and the inventions that came out of that, and the scholars that came out of that, our heroes that came out of that. And I believe the reason why it was so successful is because they went to a basic formula, and that is they addressed all those non-academic barriers. They didn't do more English, more math, more science, more testing, more history. They addressed those barriers that allow you not to learn, that make it harder or more difficult to be successful. So if we infuse that more into the curriculum as much as you do teaching to the test, and that's what the initiative that, when we started with that achievement gap, and data in those 2 or 3 years, we had double-digit increases in matriculation those 2 or 3 years. We had reduction in suspension in those 2 or 3 years. We had increase in grades. Why? Because our focus, we didn't teach not one subject. What we did was put people, mentors, resources, communities, the faith community, business community, partnerships, foundations. We collapsed all that around all those barriers that were making it harder for kids to function. Dropout rate was not just in the 9th grade. You had 4th or 5th graders already dropping out. They just not old enough to say, I'm not going to school.
I'm going to say this one more thing. The test did its purpose.
Yeah.
Because for 2 decades, we taught toward a test.
Right.
The test was a minimum standard test. It was a D. When I was in school, we were automatically challenged to get an A. So if an A equaled to a D for 2 decades, we were teaching and dumbing down the standards, and therefore the system accomplished its goals. Yeah. They built charter schools around us. They passed a law last year that any empty school building in Ohio after 1 year has to go to a charter school. If you own a charter school organization, you will become a multimillionaire. And we have to look at the people who own them. When an African American owns a charter school organization, watch what they go through as far as the scrutiny. We had one of the largest charter school organizations in Ohio come up with a whole lot of problems and basically stole millions of dollars, and they were forgiven.
Now, when you talk about, see, this education thing is really, really complex when it comes to who controls it. So we don't have control over our education anymore. Our education is controlled, well, they're moving off of Huron on the Euclid by the people that work in the Cleveland Foundation and other organizations that fund education. And it's not just the Cleveland School District. Most predominantly minority school districts, if you look at the state report card, finished in the bottom of the report card. Now, they all teach the same curriculum. So I agree with Richard Starr, Councilman Starr, is we have to start looking at the gut thing about this whole education system, because it's miseducating. It's miseducating our kids. So they're not, I have a friend out here, he may have gone, I've talked about Rick Perez. Rick Perez went to Max Hayes in the 60s. When he came out of Max Hayes,
what decade?
in 1967. He graduated with me. When he came out of Max Hayes, he got a job at Lake Buick or Shaker Heights Buick, one of those. He made more money in his first 4 years as a mechanic than I made my first 4 years as a school teacher, because he had a skill. My son-in-law has a major job with the city, but his real income, he has a major job at the city, but his real income comes from building decks, building decks and fences, because he got this skill. So if you look at people that making real money in this town, you see their names on different things. Gil Bain, some of the other names. You see their names on signs, on every Snavely. They weren't that much smarter than us. They got opportunity that we forfeited and haven't fought for to get back. Look at all the major engineering firms. It's the major ones. White folks own them, not because they're smarter than us, but because they had allies to help them get where they needed to go get.
But Judge, I think those opportunities and resources are there. But our kids don't know that they're there, because folks like us are not coming in their face and saying, no, this is here. You have the same opportunity, and I say this to kids all the time, you have the same opportunities as everybody else. But if they don't have the mindset to understand and receive it, because their mindset is on the cell phone, their mindset is on the tennis shoes.
But white folks had the same mindset. What we have to do in our mentoring, and I told this when I was president of 100 Black Men, mentoring is just half of it. The other part is advocating. Mentoring and advocacy go hand in hand. We will mentor a kid, but we got to open the door, so we have to be, and that's where I'll go back to, we got to be in the room when it happens.
And I got a point on that. When you think about the opportunities, it's hard for me to understand what you're trying to get me to see when I'm starving at home.
Right, that's what I mean by addressing those barriers. That's a non-academic barrier.
Therein lies something so powerful that we don't understand.
Exactly.
We're the only people in this country, and it goes back to something I was saying to a brother earlier about Nehemiah. We're the only people in our country that once our survival needs are met, we still have to fight for liberation.
Right.
So we don't do both. We have to fight for liberation while we're surviving. We have to build while we're fighting. We don't have time to go to sleep. We don't have time to rest when it comes to those things. Now, your personal hygiene and those things, yes, but we don't have time. We don't have time for the foolishness of who's in charge, the foolishness of you did this to me and that did to me. I mean, we got kids on the street killing each other over beefs, and then we beefing up here because we can't get along.
And when you talk about hunger, you're talking about, I'm going to tell you, I saw this firsthand. I would have never believed in a million years. I'm going to tell you what I physically saw and experienced. When I went to San Francisco, and I took the program out to San Francisco, and I had not seen such long food lines until I saw the Asian community. I had not seen such poverty and how they lived until I saw some of those Asian communities. But what I also saw in a school that I was at, that I had my program, was called Dr. Martin Luther King Middle School, where you had our brothers and sisters performing 8% in math, 6% in science, 88% in discipline, and a lot of those numbers are still what we deal every day. But guess what that school was? Guess who rented that school out every weekend, Saturday and Sunday? That Asian community that lived around that Dr. Martin Luther King Middle School. And it was filled to the rim every Saturday and every Sunday. They fed them, they taught, and if you pull their test scores up, guess what their test scores are versus the kids that lived and worked, that went to a school named after Dr. King. What I'm saying is we all have the access. What we do not all have is the mindset. That's what's missing.
And
And that mindset's come from us.
I want us to go ahead. I'm gonna let you get on that point. Before you finish that point, anybody with any questions, because we're getting into the program. If you got any questions or comment, please come up to the microphone. It's open mic. You can make any questions or comment. Come on up, Richard. Go ahead, and I'm gonna ask 2 more questions, and we're gonna get you going. Go ahead, Richard.
And to that point, if it's hard, and what I mean by it's hard, like I look at my life, you know, like I said about my background, growing up in King Kennedy, and my mom having different relationships, nobody loving her enough to marry her, but you loving her enough to impregnate her, and now she's trying to raise 6 bad children on her own, while still trying to put food on the table, clothes on our back. You think about the system, how it was set up, it's like, okay, as soon as you get pregnant, we're gonna give you this affordable housing. If you don't get a job, your rent is 0, or the minimum dollar amount as possible. So what is now being trained to do is, okay, I'm gonna get some government assistance for every child I have, and it becomes nothing but a cycle in which you see the young daughter of the family do the same thing once they get 18, 19, so they can get their housing. So we have to break those curses by having these discussions, but it takes the male to come back with the economics to be able to do that. Because nobody want to talk if you ain't got no money. You ain't bringing home no bread, it ain't nothing even to talk about. But that's still for us millennials. If you ain't got no money, ain't nobody trying to. You got to have some bread to be able to talk this language. But also, we got to raise our standards, and I challenge our sisters and our queens in our neighborhood, raise them standards and hold that man accountable. Because if you got kids and he ain't got a relationship with your child, but he got 12 and multiple years with you living together, that is a problem. Because I done sat in parent-teacher conference when I'm sitting there trying to talk that language to this guy. I'm like, yo, he haven't reached out and seek the help that he needs to be a father figure in this household, but he trying to be the man. So now that's when you get that 16-year-old jumping on his stepfather or the boyfriend. And it becomes nothing but trauma and drama for the whole community. But we have to come together and break that cycle and start with leaders like us here at the table.
Hey, brother, we're going to let you ask your question. Why don't you turn that way so you can be on camera, and we'll get you. Yeah, you can take the mic when you talk how you want. There you go.
To the mic.
There you go.
But
say your name.
my name is Santino Jones. I'm from Harvard Huff community. Fannie Lewis is my mentor. What I'm gonna say is, like what's your name right here, Pastor?
C.J. Matthews.
C.J. Man, you were talking about me when you were saying that Jeremiah was that scripture. Nehemiah, right? Boom. We're gonna see what happens when something real come to the table and see who show up. We do a lot of talking. The talking is, y'all, I'm Fannie Lewis, I'm from Huff, born and raised. Harvard is my second home. All we do is a lot of talking. But when something real comes to the table, we want to see if any one of you brothers show up. Because Jerry Prim, I know I met you with Jerry. Jerry's one of my partners. We're going to set something up. Kern, Keith, we're going to set it up. He said, give you a month time, right? I'm going to have some people fly in with a solution. And we're going to see who show up. And we're going to see who, all that's talking, it don't work. I put the work in. Tell that scripture again, what you were saying. Tell it again.
No, it's just Nehemiah. You got to build and work simultaneously.
Right. I did that. I put years on to what you're going to see in 3 or 4 weeks. I want to see who show up, though.
So, brother, I want to be the first one to say.
You show up.
That everybody up here has shown up and showed out for years.
And Fred, y'all know Fred is my brother.
There's no question about it.
And I would not have been
you got going, whenever you're ready for it, bring it to the table.
I wouldn't have got on the mic. I just flew in last night.
That's fine.
I flew in. I seen Fred post this. I said, okay. I'm tired, for real.
That's
I need to come up and see these brothers.
But we all
I got a point.
The reason why everybody's here is because for years, we all have been doing that. In this time.
Me too.
And I'm here because of Councilwoman Fannie Lewis. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her.
I'm Santino.
So I know exactly who you are.
Okay, I know who you are. I went to Harry Davis.
Same place.
Right.
I'm sorry, wait, I got a point.
Go ahead. That was your question?
No, that's what I had to say.
I got a point, sir. What's your name again? Santino. Now the question is, us show up. When the last time you showed up?
I always show up.
When?
You see Fred, you see me.
Where the receipts?
You see Fred, you know Fred Ward?
Right.
When you see Fred, you see me. That's
I know
my brother.
Fred. We worked at Boys and Girls Club.
Okay. Ask him who I am. When you see Jerry Prim, you see me. All right. Just trust me, bro. I'm the truth.
So I want to ask a question here. I want to go into. Oh, you good, Santino? We don't. When you're ready for us to show up, just let us know. We'll be there. So what I want to talk about today is something that's really, really, really important. I want everybody to kind of really listen to this. It was some statistics that came out, and I got these statistics the other day. In the city, in Cuyahoga County, we done had 160 murders in Cuyahoga County just this year, since August. 160 murders in Cuyahoga County. Out of Cuyahoga County, 124 of those murders occurred in the city of Cleveland. Out of this 124 murders that occurred in the city of Cleveland, African Americans made up 111 of those killings. When you break down that number versus males versus female, there was 103 murders that were just African American males. There were 21 murders that were women. When we go down to the very statistic versus white versus black, there were only 10 murders on white folks in this county this year. 10. So when we sit up here and we talk, and we're doing this, I know the reason why I put the podcast together was that I worked years of going around working with elected officials, getting them elected, judges and everyone to try to make a change in this community. And it seems like it just wasn't doing nothing. And it seems like we wasn't going nowhere. So I decided to do this podcast because I don't have the solutions. Like my man Santino said, he's bringing in some solutions, we'll see. But I know I don't have them. But I do know that I am an organizer by trade. That's what I do. And so it was best for me to continue to do the things that I do best, and that is to organize brothers, bring us all together so we can have conversations. Because I'm hoping out of these conversations, there are somebody who do have some solutions or come up with some ideas of what we can do to do better and helping each other. But we had 111 murders. That don't have nothing to do with the white man. That didn't have nothing to do with anything. That has to do with us killing each other for whatever. And Richard has a really good perspective on why that may happen. And we all may have perspectives on why this is happening. But for whatever reason, I do know that we do need to get together on that. So what I want to ask you, Judge Nelson, is with that type of statistic that's going on, and Richard, you can follow up, how do you believe that you expect people, especially brothers and sisters out here, to trust the legal system and to want to be a part of what's going on with this type of stuff? And that has nothing to do with the killings. I know the killings is one thing, but part of this is that we have a justice system that's just been failing us year after year. Richard spoke on the podcast that young brothers go through the system. They get caught the first time. They with a weapon. They don't do nothing. They send them back home. They get caught the second time, third time. By the time they get to their fourth time in this situation, now they done killed somebody, and now the justice system is rolling on where all this opportunity, we had a chance to do something and we didn't. So it's getting dark. So it's getting late. We're going to ask a few more questions. I'm going to let him answer this question. We're going to take a couple more questions from the audience. We're going to let everybody close, and we're going to have to end the podcast, okay? So I'm going to let Mike answer that, then we'll get a couple questions, and we'll end.
Let me do that question very quickly. Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, really addresses this. One of the worst things that happened to the African-American community that relates directly to the violence, because we moved men out of our community, was the mass incarceration that occurred during the Clinton administration. And it wasn't all Bill Clinton, because black people were so tired of the crack epidemic that we actually bought into supporting mass incarceration. One of the few Congress people that voted against it was Congressman Stokes. The rest of the black caucus supported that because people were just sick and tired. Now, that was a mistake. It was a mistake, and we paying the price for that. But let's look at another thing. Violence is not going to be, you can't look at that through a simple lens. Because in every act of violence, there are two victims. There's the victim and the victim's family, and then there's the perpetrator. The victim, and we can't go into the victim's house and say, you know what, we're so sorry about your son dying, but the kid is shot, you know he was poor, didn't have no education. If you come to a family funeral that I'm at, I'm gonna help the family run you out of the funeral if you come with that foolishness. On the other hand, but that's a reality, but the funeral is not the place to talk about that. The other side of the coin is that, and we've also lost a little moral standard. None of the things that we used to rely on that work to help us get our families where they are, do we rely on anymore. We rejected all of the things that helped us get where we got. We rejected voting. We rejected the nuclear and extended family concept, and there's some things that contributed to it, but we got to sit back, and we can't solve that, and we're not going to get to any real conclusion about it doing this podcast, because it's a long, deep discussion. So I'm going to just leave it with that, Ken. And yes, black men face two enemies in the morning: the justice system and each other.
That's correct.
And we cannot overcome any of that without spiritual roots.
That's right.
And if we don't think about the fact that that same generation was rooted spiritually,
Yep.
Yeah.
we did not need a white Jesus.
Nope.
Because if you read Acts chapter 8, Philip preached to the Ethiopian eunuch long before Paul got saved. But because we don't understand church, we rejected it also. I say to the millennials, if you don't like us in church, start your own. At least do something.
Go ahead, Richard.
That pipeline, school to prison pipeline, is real. They building prisons off 4th grade test scores. So they said in 5 years that it take to build that prison, 9th grade, you're old enough to actually withdraw yourself from school without no parent. So now we're going to catch you on the streets, and we're going to eventually lock you up. What we have to do is champion the voter initiative. Everybody should know that November 8th is an election. But it's not an election for a lot of people because folks are not getting out to vote or planning on voting. When you think about everyone in your family, think about everyone in your contacts, are you making sure they vote? Are you making sure they're engaged? Or are you going to say, well, I'm the older one of the generation of my family that just go vote, but I'm not going to help my younger cousin, my kids? Where the vote parties at? Because what happens when those laws change in D.C., when those laws change in Ohio, you come looking at city council, I'm like, we've been trying to get you to vote so we can have some leverage to get that funding back here. Things get held up in Columbus if you're trying to fight for someone who really is elected or a state representative or someone in the Senate that really doesn't care about your neighborhood because they don't know. But they got in off a small percentage. Like I ran for election in 2017. And when I ran, it was because residents told me to run because of the work I was doing in the community. They urged me. They said, run, run. I said, I don't even like politics. I don't even know what a council person does, let alone get involved in it. You must be crazy. But when I looked in the eyes of seniors as they asked me to get involved, I had to do some homework, do some research. So I ran an 8-month campaign. I lost about 200-something votes. But 4 years later, we came back stronger because now I was able to get more involved with the Democratic Party, starting to ask questions, starting to call people out and saying, where those receipts at? I'm not talking about what we did back then. I'm talking about how can you help us with the wisdom and the education you have for us to be able to move forward. Let's combine some of that history with the millennials. I always say we're the best because we know how to work hard, but we also know how to do that technology. So with that said, how do we get that wisdom and that education so we can break those cycles? Like as a city council member, I am a lawmaker. I write laws, policies, pass policies. That is one of my #1 responsibilities. But it's up to you all to get involved and hold us accountable. Don't be saying that's just my friend or I just keep saying that name on the ballot. Ask them for them receipts. Pull that Google smartphone. It's your friend.
Ken, real quick.
We got to
Okay,
take
go
these
ahead.
questions because we want to get through the questions. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Brooks, and I just want to say thank you. This was really good.
Stephanie, turn towards the camera. We want to see the people at home to see.
Where's the camera?
Straight ahead.
I'm a selfie girl.
You good.
So my question is, I feel like I'm talking. Well,
You talking right to that camera, straight ahead.
Okay. So my question is, we talked about education. We talked about the criminal justice system. We talked about. By the way, I'm a counselor, just so everyone knows. So my mind thinks a little bit different. How do we address all those things, but talk about, like the pastor was talking about, the family is the
crucial, which I agree, but how do we talk about trauma with our black men and bridging the gap to making sense for all this to happen? Because all of that is good. True, our education system, criminal justice system needs a whole lot of work. Not totally crap, but needs a whole lot of work. Politics, helpful, but the core, like this young man set up here, is the family structure. But if we're not addressing the trauma that our black men are not addressing to themselves, how do we get to that? How do we get to that? This young man right here said it just 5 minutes ago, the first time at the very end of the discussion. I just want to know you guys' thoughts, and I just want to know, is there any type of plan of action for that?
We have to give, thank you. Thank you. We have to hold our institutionals accountable for their participation in the empowerment and meeting the needs in those areas. I can thankfully say today that there are some initiatives that are moving called healing communities in that direction. You're a counselor, behavioral health, mental wellness, just the personal trauma that a child experiences every day when they're hungry, as well as all of the other trauma as it relates to death and other kinds of activities that they witness. So those things are a part of what we're building, but we need people like you to come alongside of us.
And if I got to add to that, Ken, and that was an awesome question, because what I think would be the solution is you got to put the resources in place to address the trauma. You know what I'm saying? You got to prioritize where are we going to put the resources and the people that have the expertise to deal with that. Because what we do as a community is we come up and see what's needed out here, and guess what? We figure it out. You know, if we needed a scoreboard, and it cost $60 million. Guess what? They figured it out. Okay, I was at a council meeting the other day. They're about to build a jail. It was $500 million. Now it's about to be almost $1 billion. But guess what? They figured it out, and it's going to happen. No matter what the situation is, they're going to identify the need, and they're going to figure it out. So we need to take the same mindset. I keep saying mindset, and we're talking about trauma. We're talking about behavioral health. We're talking about the achievement gap. We're talking about hunger. Why can't we figure it out when we got the resources to put a $20 million ballroom in the convention center? I'm not knocking projects that build jobs and so forth, but what I'm really saying is somehow we figure that out. But as the pastor said, and I'm going to keep going back to it until we get it, one generation after 200 years of slavery, we were in a different situation. And all we got to do is go back and reinvest in what worked, and I think our whole narrative would change.
They vote and they contribute to campaigns.
Mansfield, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mansell Baker.
Hey, excuse me, that's the camera right there. You guys got to stay off of that when that camera gets
I've been around Cleveland for quite a long time, served in politics and currently in law enforcement, and I am an educator. I'm a dean of a school. I chose to get involved because I got tired of sitting on the sideline waiting for somebody else to do it. So if you're not in the conversation, you're on the menu to me. But at the end of the day, my question to you guys is, when are we going to address the foundation of the black community, the complete foundation of the black community, and why is the black male overtly absent? Because some of us want to get involved, and then there's a lot of us that don't want to get involved. And so you have to, you know, we had Judge Ryan was here, I think he's still here maybe. He's on the juvenile court judge, and you got my frat brother Michael Nelson, and he serves on a board at Central State. You know, we have you got you guys, and you got a well-renowned pastor, Mr. Ivory. Sorry, you're a Q, but you know.
Come on now.
And Councilman Starr. We have a lot of good people, and there's some people out here in this audience that are some great people.
Man, but you got to ask your question, man. It's dark, brother.
It's not enough of it. So what are we going to do? What is the after action? What is the after action
for this?
You know, thing after we finish with this? Yes. And how is that going to spark other people to get involved?
So again, like I said, from my perspective, I started to try to do what I can to try to speak out and help the African American male and any community. So in doing that, I created my podcast and I created these conversations. And having these conversations, again, I want to be able to open up the doors to have people like yourself and others to continue to get together so we can network, talk about solutions, and try to then deal with it. Our problems are so wide and so dense that one person is not going to ever be able to come up with the solution for it. So what I decided to do was I'm going to do it. This is my slice of what I can do. I invited everybody out. I bought dinner and drinks for everybody to come on out to hear us do this podcast today just for that. That's my contribution. I'm expecting Matthews, he does his thing every day. Bob does his thing every day in the school. Judge Nelson, he's putting people out, or he's not even getting bail. He's letting people walk out of the jail. So he's doing his part, and Richard Starr is a councilman. So we all doing our part. Now, I do believe that one thing we are going to try to do as we go is we're going to try to create a platform where we all can communicate and get together on and talk. And I don't have a lot more information about that today, but at my next event we're doing, because we're going to have another event just like this coming up very soon, we'll have more information on how we believe we can help connect more African American brothers together and put us at least on a one digital platform where we all can communicate better that way. So that's one of the things that we're doing today. Richard had a comment as well.
Just to that, we see, I played Muni League football. Met some of the most influential leaders and mentors in my life still to today. The first minute I got on council, I championed the campaign to increase the allocation of funding for Muni League football from 80,000 up to 200,000. We'll settle at 160. One thing that I am working on is this commission. I can't speak more about it because it's in the works, so that we can address some of these issues from the household, want to deal with the mental health, want to deal with the behavioral health, and just the actual resources. We can't say we're giving you resources and we're not, but we got to make sure we're collaborating from the city and the county, because as you know, the county handles a lot of the human elements, but we got to hold them accountable. They can't be sitting up there like they're city council when they're county council.
And Mansell, real quick. We talk about emancipation and Juneteenth. We really didn't get free till August 6, 1965. That's when the Voting Rights Act bill passed, and that gave everybody in the United States of America freedom to vote. Now, that came about because people younger than you said, the hell with this thing and beating my ass when I can't go vote. Excuse me, Pastor, I'm sorry. The hell with that. We're going to get some voting rights. And we're going to get some voting rights in this period of time. And they got them voting rights. And we ain't going to go through all the background and science. The fact is, if we want to change our community, some people like you are going to have to sit down and say, this is my hill to die on, and I ain't going to let up until either I die or we win.
Richard, go ahead. And then we're going to let the next person come up because it's getting dark. Come
and then on that point that I would break, like when you made the 1965, when you start talking about the civil rights movement, if you look at history and become fascinated with history, do you know that Martin Luther King was fighting for the rights that we already had? Yeah. When you think of Benjamin Franklin and all the work they did the late 1800s, early 1900s, then actually once we got freed or quote unquote free, the first thing that happened was African Americans started getting elected into politics. Yeah. That's the very first thing happened in the late 1860s, the early 1900s. We started taking office seats, and that's when the gerrymandering, that's when all the things changed, and that's when everything started happening in our community. But we have to take that back and get involved in politics. Stop saying we don't do politics, but cousins that's been locked up for crimes that they shouldn't even be locked up for as far as the sentencing. So we have to get involved, not just speaking about it, but also taking action on everything we do.
Go ahead, Shakur.
Hello?
You good? The mic's on.
My name is Shakori Davis.
Pick it up, Shakuri, and put it close to your mouth.
Yeah. My name is Shakori Davis. I'm a business owner. Also was born and raised in Ward 5, graduated from East Tech. I liked it so much that I spent 2 years in 12th grade. But I have a question. I'm also a business owner. So when looking in the African American community in particular, we don't have not one area in the city of Cleveland that we can call a success, that where black people reside in particular. So I guess my question is, one, we have a lot of money, ARPA dollars in the city of Cleveland. Is it a good investment to put that money into the African American community? Because, I mean, especially listening to what we've been talking about, it's kind of been a little bit discouraging. It's all facts, but a little discouraging. So in business, if you're not growing, then you're dying. In the black community, inner city in particular, in Cleveland leadership, we do a great job maintaining poverty instead of moving it forward. You spoke about that, Rich, when you talked about the welfare system and things of that sort. So as an investor or developers, if they invest in our community, they're investing at a loss, right? So
not all of them.
No.
Go ahead,
unless
though.
it's gentrified.
No, go ahead.
Unless it's gentrified.
Go ahead. We're gonna fight that.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. So how long before we, as the black community, take accountability and rebooting our culture and our values, so that we can bring back in our regards, increase the value of investments in our community. Adding to this, especially in regards to the church. So we have a church and I say this because you're a pastor, we have a church on every other block. And that impedes investments, especially in regards to development. So what type of effect do you think that has on advancing and developing the black community?
Hold on, before you answer that, I want to ask you a question before you answer that. You said that a church on every block,
every other
block impedes development. How?
Well, because they have a lot of say-so. When you agree, anytime there's going to be development inside of a community, the church most likely is the stakeholders in that area. So, of course, it's preventing nightlife, which is on the west side. If you look anywhere on the west side in development, nightlife.
But that's not true, Shakori. And let me tell you why it's not true. Okay. I'm going to tell you exactly why it's not true.
I'm an investor, too.
No, I understand, but I'm going to tell you why I know it's not true. I know it's not true because if you are a business owner and you wanted to open up a store and you wanted to sell liquor out your store, councilman right there can say, I don't want that store. He can bring all his people down there and they can protest and say they don't want liquor. Then you gonna go downstate to Columbus, and you gonna go to Columbus and you gonna tell them you do want liquor. The people in Columbus gonna go bam, stamp it, and come back. Richard Starr gonna then sit down with you and say, well, can't we work out a cooperation agreement that you will only do certain things during certain times? But that's why I don't believe that what you're saying, and I hear all the other stuff, it's just that point on the church. I think you're giving them a little bit too much credit in that regards of saying that the church can impede development in the community. Now, it's been a time where it could, and I believe the churches would, but right now, I don't think that's true, and I could be out of tune. We're going to let the pastor take it from there. Go ahead, Pastor.
I accept that.
Okay. Well, it's not that it's out of tune. What impedes investment in our community is the perspective of what the land is available and the risks. And the risks in our community, unfortunately, is safety. All right? And so the moment someone is going to invest, I was buying Randall Park Mall, if you remember. The moment someone is going to invest, you have to answer those questions. So as a result of that, in the church, again, when the church is awake, it has that kind of power. When it's not awake, it doesn't.
Exactly. Okay.
And if you have an awake pastor, such as myself, we have that kind of power. Mm-hmm. And if the wrong thing is coming in our community, we'll look at it and we will fight it without question. But if something is coming in our community that's going to benefit all of the things that Brother Starr, Brother Ivory work on every day, then we're going to not only support it, we're going to become his champion. Because what we really have is advocates in the positions and places, in the things that Judge Nelson described. People who can write checks and write it without the foolishness that we have to go through so many times. And so the church is there, church on every corner, and we still got all the stuff we got going on, so we need more, not less.
Let's talk about that.
Come
for a
on,
minute.
brother.
Let's talk about Shakur. Come back up here. Yeah, come back. Let's talk about Bo Kness is building all over Cleveland. Raggedy little, well, I can't say it, I want to be libelous. He's building houses all over Cleveland, Bo Kness. There's some other developers building all over Cleveland. They get money from somewhere to do it. Some of them don't even have any money. And they're using other folks' money to do this. The one thing that we don't have in Cleveland, they got in Atlanta and other cities, is if we ain't in it, it ain't happening. You need to get with your boys or ladies, organize. When they come and take your plan downtown, we need some neighborhoods in Cleveland. We need neighborhoods. They're building apartment buildings for people who are transitory, high-end apartment buildings, but we need some neighborhoods. We have land in Cleveland, in Huff right now. There's a project going up. That could be a neighborhood with some single-family, ranch-style houses with 2-car garages, a yard, 3 bedrooms in community. We had 800,000 people once upon a time, almost 900,000. We got 380,000 people. That means we don't have to build up, we can build out. But somebody got to sell that. We got this, what's that money you all got down there that you can use for mortgage assistance and everything? But somebody got to organize. Bo Kness, who is his organization? Where's his team? Where's community base at? Where's Bo Kness's community base? It ain't anywhere in Cleveland. But he has the attention of people. You got to and I'm saying you because it's you the man, you the investor. You got to develop this and get your boys and girls together to get down there so you can sell these projects to the council and get some of that money for homeowner assistance and build some neighborhoods.
All right, we're going to let Richard answer this, and we're going to take 2 more questions, y'all, and we got to go. Okay. YouTube going to kick us off. So we have 2 more questions.
I'll be real brief, real quick with it. So one thing that I do as far as development, so everyone knows about the Opportunity Corridor. Most of that Opportunity Corridor is through Ward 5. Mm-hmm. So everybody and your mom want to call Councilman Starr's office, my office, and ask to meet. To this date, I met with about 40 developers. Mm-hmm. The first thing I ask is, where's the diversity? Where's the equity and the inclusion? And when I'm talking about that is, don't come to me talking about you got a white female talking about that's a minority. Those changes that we want to implement it's all about you as residents, investors, demanding understanding. So not only before I pass any legislation to help or sign a letter of support or a TIF or a CPACE or a street vacation, all these different things, before I do that, I'm asking for that contract. I'm doing the work of emailing the directors. I'm sending it and make sure the mayor included on it. I'm asking questions so I can have my receipt to say, I asked you, are you going to work with someone that's local? Or are you trying to bring somebody from out of town to do work? Those type of things can happen with the power of those individuals, the residents, investors, getting together and figuring out whatever plan. Now, if you come to me, make sure you got a business plan. Don't have me talking about we're gonna do something and now I'm going off of words. I can't do that. But working together, holding those elected officials accountable when it relates to the city, you can do things. And if it's something like the alcohol license and stuff like that, there's ways to work around that. But it takes a community to say what they don't want. Those calls to the police, track record of why you don't want it there. Those type of things can be shut down, but it takes a community and it starts with that education that we've been speaking about all night.
Go ahead, my brother.
Hello, everybody. My name is Chief Chen. How you doing, Councilman?
Hey.
I guess my question, and also sort of a statement to all of you here is, as a young person in Cleveland, I grew up here. I love the city so much. But I know as a young person, it's extremely hard to flourish here.
Speak into the mic, bro.
It's extremely hard to flourish here in this city. It's compounded by a lack of jobs, but it's also compounded by the fact that our leadership seems, in my experience, more concerned with maintaining their power than letting young people in, exposing them to those functions of government, policy, etc. More concerned with enriching themselves And I know this because a lot of my friends can go elsewhere to other cities and flourish. Like we talked about Atlanta. So many young black people in Atlanta are flourishing. When Atlanta and Cleveland at one point in time had similar black populations, right? So my fear is that all of the youth of this city leave, go somewhere else, and then our white counterparts inherit what should be our birthright.
Come on.
So I guess to me is like, how can we foster an environment where we can use our elders to guide us, but the sort of the dynamism and energy of young people to create a more inclusive future? Because from where I stand, the city really looks after the interests of older people, whether that's older white people or older black people. So that creates an environment where we're just like, you know what?
Let me answer your question.
Okay,
Let me answer.
go ahead.
You speak to an issue that we addressed with the NAACP. Before I was president of ACP, the leadership was 80 years old.
Yeah.
I became president and said, we're going to flip this. Danielle Sitnor became the president. Everybody in her leadership cadre is under 45.
Yeah.
The whole group. And Danielle, of course, we lost her to Columbus because Columbus said, woo, we swooping this girl up to run the RISE organization, gave her $8 million to start something from scratch. What's the young man that went out to Phoenix and became the state coordinator? Mike Ruff. Michael Ruff, he's younger, older than you, but Kenn's age. He didn't have opportunity here, went to Phoenix, and now he's a state minority coordinator for the Democratic Party. Right. The whole blank state. So here's the issue. There are a couple of things that we don't have. Now, we have beautiful summer weather. Some people like beautiful weather all year long. So those are some in Atlanta, all those cities have some good. But the one thing that they do have is a community that is economically vibrant.
Yes.
And it's not a closed circle. I just talked about these developers. Cleveland is the opportunity capital of the world. Like I just said, we used to have 800, 900,000 people. We only got 380,000 now. We can do anything we want to do in Cleveland. Look, I'm sick and tired of going to Chinatown and buying Chinese food and can't find no black barbecue places. But I can go on 79th and find a Chinese restaurant, but ain't no black businesses in Chinatown.
Judge, what he's saying is also, and what we had coming up and we don't have now was a black infrastructure.
Yes.
That infrastructure is what facilitates things for all ages.
Right.
Yes.
It unfortunately died with people because we didn't institutionalize it. So we're wiser now.
Yes.
We don't have to have a generational divide. That's a myth propagated by people who want us to think that.
I agree.
If we begin to build, and it's going to be more y'all than us, using our resources, influence, wisdom, whatever we have, if we would take the time, and see, that's the key of organizing. That's why Kenn and Aaron are so powerful, and Cordell, they understand organizing. If we don't take the time to build that infrastructure, along with empowering, earning, developing, it all has to be simultaneous. Why? Because it don't exist now. So you have to take what don't exist and create it and bring it into existence.
And there's enough of us still around that understand that model. There's a lot of us, you said build, and I'm saying that parenthetically because the organization that when I met you through the councilwoman was through Build, Blacks United in Leadership Development. Did I get it right?
Local democracy.
Local democracy.
And
that organization gave birth to a lot of us that are still around. So persons like myself and other persons like Kenn that still create these formats, we need relationships and partners with brothers like yourself because we got the model and the people that trained us, Councilwoman Lewis, Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones, Arnold People. They are in us right now. They are in us and we do it every day. However, we need the partners that come with us so we can share and learn from each other. A brother said something a second ago. He was in your fraternity. But I say this for a reason. Tomorrow is, I believe, the countywide, citywide Walker Dad Walker Child at school tomorrow, okay? We talking about solutions. How many brothers are gonna be at schools tomorrow? How many Kappas are gonna be there? How many Qs are gonna be? How many Alphas are gonna be? How many
Alphas
Sigmas
gonna be there.
How many are gonna be there deep, even if they don't have any kids in the school? Those are solutions. How many of the faith community are gonna be in schools all around the city tomorrow? I've been to these events, and you can see a handful of folks all over the place. Solutions are right here.
Ours have had 75 to 80 guys.
Right. So solutions, we have solutions. We have to build on what already works, but we got to have action and not reaction.
And it's getting better for you, brother, because city council is a new council.
Yes.
You have
With a
all
new
new
mayor.
people, and you have a brand new mayor who's
Yes.
just under 40. We can at least say that for sure.
And also to your point, they're not gonna give you anything. And what I mean by that, our elders are not. And they shouldn't just give you anything. Sometimes you have to put that work in before you get the job to show that you're ready for the job, for them to help you out. Like you remember in 2017, it was rough. They was running smear campaigns on me.
Yeah.
They were doing anything to stop me.
Yeah,
But we have to
but that's kind of my point, though.
And I don't want to cut you off, but
Yeah.
that was politics.
Yeah, that is.
Some of us have a grace on our lives. We didn't have to fight our elders to get where we are.
But not-
They brought us along.
Pastor, not like
They
that.
empowered us.
But not like that, Pastor. What I'm saying is like, you're not about to say, "Wait, hey, just here you go." I gotta show you that I want it. I gotta work with you. I gotta come seeking
when
help,
you start
right?
taking the right steps,
You're going to open up.
Yeah, I'm
when you
not
start
advocating
walking in
for
the
that.
right direction,
Yeah.
the folk who want to take those steps and walk with you,
They gonna-
they there.
And they'll
The
get
folk
out your
who
way.
can't take those steps and don't want to walk with you, you look up, you don't know where they're at. So you just got to be willing to take the steps. And sometimes it's just a matter of saying, hey, my name is Chen, did you say?
Yes, sir.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
See, I know your name now.
But see, so, and I'm trying to be as quick as possible, but I think what we went through in part in 2017 is illustrative of the problem, though, because in the white community, there are active elders looking for people to pull up to take their spot.
Oh, no, it ain't.
Mike Pelosi. Hold it.
No, that's not a.
Let me correct that real quick.
I'm a political consultant, and I work with white and black candidates.
I've worked with white and black candidates too.
We know them personally.
Yes, I'm not saying
White
it's
people-
always
That's
there.
their nephew, that's their sister's son, that's their cousin, that's who they're promoting. They just ain't promoting nobody.
Chen,
Don't buy that myth. Don't buy that myth.
Let me say this to you.
This ain't about what white people do and don't do. This is what our black people can do.
I'm with that. I'm with that.
Let me correct that real quick. Mike Pelosi's been in council for 40-something years. He's white as you can get. Dennis Kucinich has run for every office in the world, and he is as white as you can get. They hold on to their power. What they do is share it with their siblings and relatives.
Right.
They don't open up the door for somebody new. They share O'Malley and O'Malley.
Right.
They keep the stuff in the neighborhood.
Right.
And
But here,
ethnicity.
let me say something to you here, though.
Irish.
Cordell, stand up, man. You want to talk about collaborations? Sit down with Cordell after this thing is over and talk about 20 minutes.
Okay, and then I have one last point.
Yeah, this is because she
One
our
last
last
point.
question.
I know. But so, because I live in Ward 7, I live in Huff.
Right.
I've lived there since I moved to Cleveland.
How long you been in here?
Since I was 7. I moved from New York.
Okay.
But I think when I look at the demographics of Cleveland, the greater Cleveland areas, what is frustrating is a lot of people have voted with their feet and their dollars and have left Cleveland. A lot of black people are sitting outside of Cleveland and asking why Cleveland isn't doing well. But there's no money circulating in Cleveland, so how can you ask if they're doing well? So I urge people my generation, but the real wealth and money is Gen X and boomers, to repatriate that money back into Cleveland and find ways and vehicles to invest in the communities, because there has to be a spark. And that spark has to be with money. So that's
somebody moved back into this bad boy. Somebody moved back. All this building going on.
That's what I said about white millennials inheriting our birthright.
Oh, it's some black folks moving in the town.
It's some, but
here. Let me set this for you. Chen, don't get discouraged. I want to say this to you. The city is a blank canvas. A blank canvas. For somebody smart and organized to come in here and take some stuff over. It's a blank, but they gonna give it to you, like Richard said. You're gonna have to come in here and show some. So I can't do that.
We've shrunk
Social cannones.
But we have not shrunk in landmass.
Yes, there's so much vacant land.
All right, we're gonna take our last question today because we gotta sign off. They're gonna kick me out of here. This is our last question of the night. I appreciate everybody coming out. So come on, let's go ahead. No, I gotta go. We gotta go.
All right, first of all, let me thank you for bringing this forum to the front. This was great, and it was very timely and needed. First of all,
you know y'all my, hold on, sorry. You know you guys my people. I got y'all. I got y'all. Go ahead.
So I heard everything that everybody had to say. I thought it was very useful, and I think that we could use your expertise, especially me. I am empowering our youth all over the city of Cleveland. One common theme that I heard tonight, what we have been working very hard on, is the voter education series. We've been down in Friendly Inn, we've been down in Nottingham and Collinwood, and we're finishing up over in Mount Pleasant at Harvey Rice. We need our men to step up and come and join us in our plight. Not only are we doing voter education series, we're doing summer jobs programs, diapers, we're doing hats and gloves. We're going to give out 5,000 this winter. The Spot Youth Empowerment Organization. And so we don't just want you all to come out and help us. We want to come help you. How can we connect with you? How can we get on your platform so that we can work together to empower? We're here, we're open, especially our seniors that's been on the ground and know what to do. We're trying to empower our youth so that they can take control of their lives and have the tools to play the game. That's why this voter empowerment series is so important. We're not just registering them to vote, we're teaching them how to research candidates, about initiatives and referendums and things like that that they really need to be empowered voters. Half of our class is leaving registered to vote, plus they're getting $100. But it takes funding to do things like this. So that's why we need each one of you to come out and be a part of this thing that we're trying to do. Because this is not just for the election. We're trying to do next year one every month in every neighborhood, east and west, because our youth deserve representation.
Richard,
so you guys,
Richard, won't
please.
you and Bob respond to that?
I'm all in. I'm all in. Whatever I can do to support, I'm all in.
Do you know Richard, Councilman Starr?
Yes, I meant Councilman Starr.
He has the flyer. I gave him a copy. I'll give him another.
Okay.
All right. Also, we've been calling for, especially our black elected officials, to come out. We have been fortunate to have Shayla Davis come out. The Rose, the Ohio State Secretary, been coming out and graduating our kids out. Now we know why.
All right. Kennedy, raise your hand.
We need you
Kennedy,
guys.
raise your hand. You see that girl right there? Make sure you give one of those forms that, here she is there. Raise your hand again, Kennedy. She right over there. She over there. And give Kennedy one of your forms, and I'll make sure we hook up and try to get you some elected officials on our side to get out there as well so they can have a full representation of everybody. Okay. Hey, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I want to thank all of my folks here who came today and everyone on YouTube and Facebook who's watching us today. We do have a couple of gifts we're going to give away. Kennedy, you want to come up here and give these tickets? I hope everybody still got their tickets and they're still here. We lost a few people, but we're going to do this real quick. We have two great gifts we're going to give away. Hey, so here, can you take this with you? I'm gonna read these numbers real quick. So, first number is, I can't see. Oh my God, I really can't see.
Any help? You need a millennium?
I need a millennium. Come over here, sir. He's closer to the light over there.
You can see?
No, I don't have no light over here. I have no light.
I got a light. Hold on a minute.
Richard right here.
You got it.
You got that one, Richard? Read both numbers? Yeah, read the first one.
Okay, the first number is 392.
392
008.
008. 392 008. We got the winner. 391 008. 392 008.
392 008.
Oh, wait a minute. I need to look at my thing. No.
All right, we got a winner. She claimed her. She already up already.
We gotta make sure we check. Make sure we check now.
Check that number.
Let's check that number.
All right.
Now we got another one.
The next winner is 392
392
013.
013. 013.
The girl at the front with the box braid.
Uh-oh, we get to pull another number. Let's do that number one more time. What was it?
392
392
013.
013. Oh, who's the Richard? I can't see that. All right, we're going to pull it. Oh, you got it? Oh, we got it. All right, there it is. You know what? That's why I was telling y'all. We do an event for African American males. We do a raffle.
Women win all the
and the women win all the gifts. You know, that's how it goes. And again, cue my theme song, man. We're going to get up out of here. I want to again thank everybody else for coming out. I want to thank everybody for coming out to the show again. We're going to continue this conversation. We're going to do another series of Brother Can We Talk is coming up in the month of November, and we're going to do our next get-together and networking event will be in December. So everybody, we got all your information that when you signed in online and when you came in through the doors, we got your email information. We will be emailing information out to you to keep you in tune of our next event. And again, thank you for coming out. See you the next time.
You rockin' with a go. Kenn Dowell giving you motivation for growth. 2 toes down, he keep it realer than most. He do it for the culture, that's always the goal. This is Strategic Moves with Kenn Dowell. This is Strategic Moves with Kenn Dowell. Ladies and gentlemen, you rockin' with a go. Kenn Dowell giving you motivation for growth. 2 toes down, he keep it realer than most. He do it for the culture, that's always the goal. This is Strategic Moves with Kenn Dowell. This is Strategic Moves with Kenn Dowell.
Right now, you're listening to Cleveland, Ohio's top soldier, the General, Philly Man.
She fill my mind with ideas. I'm the highest in the room. Hope I make it out of here. She somehow, she know I'm gone. I see some things that you might feel. I'm doing a show, I'll be back soon. That ain't what she wanna hear. No, I got it in my room. Legs wrapped around my head. Got the fastest car to zoom. Hope we make it out of here. When I'm with you, I feel